let me just say one more thing about this. So the big risk, the big challenge is that Peter, for example, is saying, hold on a minute, why are we dealing with all these questions? These are all second principles. We must reassert in the first place a first principle inquiry, the purpose inquiry, or else we are lost because we are already untethered from the causing, shaping inquiry. The problem is we don't even have a shared frame of reference anymore. And not only that, we no longer have an information and knowledge landscape that enables you to reason constructively. What you have is entrenched positions. What you have is an ecosystem and a breakdown in the knowledge landscape, together with social media as the tool and the cultural and the ethics that unleashes people to the belief and the myth that what I feel is true, period. There is no other higher truth. If I feel angry right now, that's the major truth. If I make up stuff in my head, that becomes true, because there is no longer such thing as fact. There is no longer such thing as verifiable fact. There is only socially constructed fact. And that belief system that truth and facts are socially constructed means I can come up with anything. I can make stuff up and create my own bubble of truth. And that's part of why we are facing even the challenge that will help us, that we will need to address, Peter, if we are to seriously be able to delineate what's first principle inquiries and what's second principle inquiries. That's a major blockage, major stop situation.
Let me just add, Aviv, that alongside the information and knowledge, there is a lot of misinformation and false knowledge.
That's right.
So this is the greater threat in it, where there is an utter confusion between truth or reality, or what they call today alternative facts. So in this great mixing of maybe useful and good information and all the rest of the conspiracy theories and madness that one finds on the web, it's really frightening to think how it impacts the perception and the views and the sensibilities of the younger generation.
That's exactly the point we are asserting with this, which makes the other first four that we addressed so very challenging, because whatever move you're going to try and make on economic terms, on social, cultural, ethical, leadership issues, and on political policy, governance issues, you are influenced by the breakdown in the media and the social media space and the capacity to create a shared information and knowledge landscape where you can sense make together. And now I want to bring the next item, the next element. This is going to be interesting because I put two that deservedly, each one deserve a box by itself, but I specifically put them in one box because I ran out of space. These are two huge spaces: social equity and social justice, one, and gender. These, they touch many raw nerves in recent years, and so there is no need to explain those very much. All I will simply say is that there are very sincere and genuine and deep and important people pursuing those inquiries, pursuing those causes with great passion, who believe you cannot approach anything before you approach that. that is an example for an issue that in some cases galvanizes a person to a point they say there is nothing else to talk about. Before you solve the social equity, the social justice issue, nothing else matters. I will say, well, how can you solve social equity without addressing the economic, the policy, the ethical, and so on? But it's important to recognize that those are major, huge elephants in the room. The gender conundrum. Have we reached yet a point of equity or not? What else needs to be solved? What else? What other glass ceilings, floors, walls need to be broken? But how to break those in a way that is participative, reciprocal, sustaining, and based in, once again, Peter comes to mind, and he will say, I can hear your voice, Peter. What's the point to inquire into this without actually asking, what are humans on this earth for? What's the purpose of life? I will simply say that there is a good percentage of the population who are passionate about creating a better future, who will refuse to engage with you in a conversation unless you come through the social equity lens or unless you come through the gender lens. So that's part of the challenge we are facing. Is there a way to actually even frame the conversation?
Yeah, I can say on this that it is an issue, about the gender issue, that we see it's coming up very much. In fact, in Greece at the moment, we have a whole explosion of ladies coming up and reporting that they have been misused and bullied and so on. And it really makes one wonder that we're still dealing with these issues, and where are the platforms? And I don't mean just the legal platforms or the ethical platforms, but really, why don't we intervene? Or why are not we trained to say no? Or to voice when we see something wrong happening to our colleague, or from our boss, or from a client, or, So what stops us from voicing what's wrong? And whether it's happening to a male or female, because it happens to both. And how do we secure these aspects? I mean, the other day, that was before the quarantine, my daughter went to a bowling, play with her friends. And my husband went to pick her up, and just outside the bowling club, there was a gang of boys fighting. So they had one, and they were kicking him. So he intervened together with another man. He intervened, and then he had to go to the police to report. And he called me and said, I am in the police and I'm reporting because I intervened. And I was in another with the other daughter, with other moms. And they said, why did he intervene? Now he's having problems and he shouldn't intervene. And how did he know who was right and wrong? And I said, look, if your child was being beaten, wouldn't you have wanted someone to intervene? And it's really going to education, really, and also to building a powerful assembly that, especially when you are young and exposed and you go to a new job, that you find the confidence to speak if something happens to you and to say no. And the other person that is watching him, a bullying happening, does he intervene? Do we intervene or do we allow it?
Yes. So true. And any person that comes through these lens, they're always right. You can never judge them, you can never criticize them, because if somebody has been harmed either on the gender front or been harmed by social equity, you can never judge them for wanting for that to be redressed. What you can, if there is enough space to have an open conversation, is ask whether focusing on that issue to the exclusion of all other issues is actually effective, or whether the gender, the social equity must be brought to bear inside the cosmology of those the bigger picture of all those other elements, because they come into it. Nothing is ever in isolation. Everything relates to everything else. But I first recognize that, and I've been in situations where unless you are prepared to first recognize and honor and acknowledge that harm was done, there isn't a way to begin a conversation. And sometimes the demand for that is, no, we need to stay in this conversation for the first 40 hours. So then the question is, do we have the 40 hours? Because perhaps we need to address some other challenges, some other issues. That is part of the breakdown that we have in the operating system, and it allows me to now close with number 7 and 8 that you already addressed in some way, Kyriaki, right at the beginning, by simply saying everything we looked at reflects that the geopolitical and the nation state, the paradigm that brought, especially in the last 150 years, prosperity, peace, and so on, that operating system, okay, the operating system that enabled democratic free market societies, that entire paradigm reached an obsolescence point.